Hey there, welcome back to Online Marketing Foundations. We're still in Module 2, Commit to Lead an Audience. Now, in the last two lessons, we were talking about kind of external facing things, about finding and really kind of figuring out who your people are and doing the work to understand them. And that is hugely important, and you can't skip that. But just as important as it is for you to understand your people, you need to understand yourself. And so we're going to shift to understanding yourself and kind of how it is that you are uniquely qualified to lead an audience. That's what we're going to be talking about here in this lesson. In lesson 4, we're talking about how you go about recognizing your core competencies. What are the things that make you uniquely qualified to help your people, to lead your people, and all of those things? What is it that is unique about you and your business that will make you perfect to be a leader? That's what we're talking about. Let's dive in. As always, we start with the truth bomb. Trying to build a business that's not suited to your core strengths is like trying to row upstream in whitewater rapids. It ain't gonna work. You can keep trying. You're gonna struggle, and you're not gonna make progress. And that's what a lot of people are doing. So instead of doing that, what you need to figure out is, what is the flow? What are your natural core strengths? And go with the flow of that and build a business around that. So that's what we're going to be focused on in this episode, is helping you do exactly that. So here in this lesson, we're going to talk about what the heck is a core competency. We're going to help you understand that. We're going to help you figure out how to find your core competencies and then why they matter to your business, because you got to kind of have it all put together in your mind about how all of this comes together. So that's what we're doing. Let's start with what the heck are core competencies. Now, it's really just kind of a fancy marketing term. And what it means is the term core competencies refers to a business's core strengths, the areas where it excels as compared to the competition. Where are you better than the competition? And it's not necessarily, and normally it's not going to be about kind of the underlying technical work. Now, the technical work can matter, but oftentimes it has nothing to do with the technical work. It'll be something like, that, hey, you have this particular ability to do X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of examples of this. Some people would talk about how Walmart is amazing at logistics among everything else. It's one of its real strengths, is that Walmart will actually buy products and they don't have to pay for it for 30 days, but they actually are so good that they will buy a product, receive it, and sell it. So they get the money in their hand before they even have to pay for it. That is a core strength of Walmart as a brand. It's an important thing that they recognize that they are good at. So it's something that kind of makes you different among the competition. Sometimes it's related to what you do. Other times it's not. And that's kind of an example in the broad world. But let's talk about kind of how it comes about. In traditional businesses, that they use or they figure out their core competencies through what's called a SWOT, SWOT analysis. And SWOT is an acronym. And so what it is strengths, which is kind of your internal, what are you good at? Weaknesses, that's internal, what are you not good at as a business? Opportunities, that's kind of external, things that are available to you in the market. And then threats, what are kind of potential bad things that are external to you? So that's the SWOT analysis. We are not going to go through this entire process. Now, what you're doing with the SWOT analysis is trying to kind of figure out where you are positioned in your market. But the important thing is that I want you to get is from a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Even if there's an opportunity in the market, like if there is a gap in the market, if your core strengths, your core competencies don't fit that opportunity, you shouldn't be the one who's trying to fill it. And that's how all of this fits together. And so basically the strengths within the SWOT analysis are the business's core competencies. Those are the things that the business is uniquely good at and is able to kind of set itself apart. And that's how they can decide, here's how we go about figuring out what opportunities we take advantage of. That's one piece of it, but there's other pieces as well. So that's kind of in the realm of a traditional business, but we're kind of different, right? We're personal brands. And as personal brands, your business's core competencies are your personal strengths. Now, as you grow a team and build out a team, your business will have competencies beyond yours. But when you're starting out, your strengths are your business's competencies, but also just as importantly, if you're going to be the face of the business in a lot of ways, your strengths are always going to be an important part of understanding what it is that your business, can really do better than others. And so understanding that is important. So that's kind of what we're doing it. Now let's move on to how do you identify your core competencies or your core strengths. Again, because it's about figuring out your personal strengths, personality assessments are the best way to identify your core strengths because that's what those things are about. They're about helping you identify where is it that you excel. And again, because it's personal to begin with, that's why we're going to do these assessments and that's why they work so well. Now, there's a lot of different options for assessments out there, and I'm not going to go over all of them. If you have a conversation with online entrepreneurs, they will often ask you, well, what's your this, what's your that? And there's a lot of different ones out there that, you could take and you could do it. I personally like 3 of them that I have used consistently. First is the Myers-Briggs. This is one that was developed by, professionally developed by a bunch of people creating it, Myers and Briggs, and it helps you really understand a lot about yourself. You'll get a score that has 4 letters. I am an ENFP, which means I'm an extrovert, I'm intuitive, I am a feeler, and I am a perceiver. So each one of those, there's kind of 2 options for each of those letters. That tells me what it is. There are 16 different personality types. My ENFP, by the way, happens to be known as the performer. It is the same personality type as a lot of comedians and people who perform for a living. You can kind of see how that might be relevant information for me to know and how it might, be something that could help me understand how maybe my business is uniquely suited. And we'll get to what you do with it in a bit, but that's one of the ones that I like, and it's one of the most widely used, the Myers-Briggs, sometimes called the MBTI. The next assessment that I like is DISC, and DISC, D-I-S-C, is an acronym. It's dominant, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And so each one of those, you take this assessment and it'll kind of rate which one of those are high, which ones of those are low, etc. Some people are really high on one, low on all the others. Most people tend to have a 2-letter score. So I am a DI. I am a dominant influencer on the DISC assessment. But I'm also very low on C, which means I don't tend to be compliant. I don't tend to simply do what people tell me to do. I kind of tend to be a rebel. I tend to be an independent thinker. So that's very relevant, and that is kind of information that's helpful as well. Then the final assessment I want to talk about, and the one that I love the most, that my team loves the most, is the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And Clifton Strengths is different than most, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Just so you know, most of the other assessments that people talk about, and in addition to these, you'll hear people talk about the Enneagram, the Colby A, the Human Design. There's a lot of these different ones, but most of them will put you into maybe one of 10 buckets or one of 16 types or something like that. But that's about where most of them live, is somewhere between 9 and 16 different personality types is how they're going to diagnose you. Clifton Strengths is completely different, and that's why I love it. It's my favorite because it gives you way more detail. It is not something that gives you and puts you in a category of one of 16. Now, let me kind of walk through what it is, and maybe this will help you understand why I like it so much. It starts with domains. There are 4 domains of strengths. And you will, when you take the test, you will discover which of these domains you lead with, which is kind of secondary, and then third and fourth. The different domains are strategic thinking, relationship building, influencing, and executing. Just so you know, my strengths are influencing. I lead with influence, and strategic thinking is a close second. Executing, bottom of the barrel for me. Now, again, that doesn't mean I'm bad at it. It just means among these different areas, it is the area that I am least good at. So it gives you a sense. There are the domains, but when you take the assessment, it's different than that. Because what it is it ranks how 34 different strengths show up in each individual, like rated. So you will get a list from 1 to 34 of how those strengths show up in your particular person and personality. I could do the math. I'm not going to. There are billions of potential rankings. So what this means is that the chances are that when you take this assessment, you will get a result that is unique to you. There might be 1 or 2 other people in the world with whom you share your exact set of strengths. Even just like the top 10 strengths, the chances of you sharing it with someone is like 1 in, I think it's like hundreds of millions, but it is very unique. And so you're getting something that actually is about your personal strengths, not kind of giving you 1 of 16 chances here. But what gets even cooler is, so like when you take this test, you get a report back and it lists your strengths and it'll show how they show up in your life and how it is that you do that. Well, the information for each one of those strengths is customized based upon your particular ordering. So for example, one strength is ideation, which has to do with coming up with ideas. Well, it's one of my top 5 strengths. But if you read what my report says under ideation, it will be different than what it says under someone else who has ideation, maybe even in the same position of strength, because it's based on how all 34 of my strengths are put together to be uniquely me. So it really gives you a ton of insight. And I can just tell you, when I took this, my team and I have been coached on it, have paid someone to coach us on it. But I go back to my report and I just read it and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I see things. Luckily, I was largely living in my strengths before, but it helps me to lean into my strengths even more and see how those strengths really show up and be more confident that I'm showing up the right way. So again, I'm going to tell you, if you're asking me my opinion, you're here in my course, so you might want it. The Clifton Strengths Assessment is a no-brainer. You have to pay for it, which is different. You can find free versions of the others. You'll have to pay for this one, but it is well worth the cost to do that assessment. Now, at the end of the day, look, there are countless options for assessment, but the goal is ultimately to find an assessment that really helps you understand your core strengths. Maybe you're going to decide that you believe the MBTI, the DISC, the Enneagram, whatever it is. I've given you my opinion on this, but go find it and take the time to take assessments so you'll truly understand what your core strengths are. Once you've done that, then your question is, okay, great. Well, what do I do with that? How does it affect my business? Good question. Let's talk about this in depth because it really is important. But really, at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. You should build your business around your core strengths. Wherever you you shine, you should build a business that highlights that strength, that lets you really lean into that strength and use that strength to serve your audience. When you build a business around your strengths, it will make a business just kind of work. See, the problem though is a lot of entrepreneurs are struggling and don't enjoy their businesses because they're not living in their strengths. They're building a business that is them paddling upstream in the rapids, like I said at the beginning, because they're trying to build a business that is not suited to what they are uniquely created to do. That is what you need to stop doing. And that's where you need to figure out your strengths and don't do that anymore. Because to build a business you actually love running, you need it to cater to your natural strengths. But the other thing is you have to actually find help where you struggle. Because I'm going to be clear. I mentioned before, execution is the area of my business or the area of my personal strengths that is the lowest on the Clifton strengths. Well, look, you can't build a business without executing, without following through. Now, I'm not horrible at it. I get stuff done. But what I've discovered is, hey, that's somewhere where I need to get help. And when I get help and get someone else to kind of help make sure that happens, it can really help my business to kind of, get on, get into warp speed. And so that's what I want you to get. You want to build a business around your strengths and find help on the things that are not your strengths. So now let's talk specifics, because I'm guessing you're like, okay, this is great in theory, but I want to really understand how it plays out. So let's talk about some specifics here, specific ways and specific places that your strengths will kind of help to contour the business you build. First is with your product. You should tailor the products you offer to your personal strengths. I mean this in product type and everything. Like, you should not be creating a product that is not within your strengths. Now, maybe you're someone who is great at teaching, who's great at taking concepts and making them very easy to understand for people. By the way, that happens to be some of my strengths. When that's the case, you should create products that are tailored to that. You should actually lean into that and make sure that that's part of what you're doing, because that is a good use of your strengths. You're building a business around your strengths. So that's a way with your products. And at the same time, though, it's just as important that you make sure you're not building products that are not part of your strength. And an example I always give of this is that if you're someone who gets drained by working directly with people, don't create VIP offers that involve one-on-one coaching. Or if you are the ultimate introvert, an introvert doesn't always mean this, but someone who is drained by interacting with people, even in the context of a membership, don't create a membership that requires you to engage with people. I will see people do this, and then they struggle because they're like, well, I don't really want to do this. Do I have to do this? And I simply say, well, then why did you create that product? Don't create that product if it's working against your strengths. Now, another example of how this works to do it right is I am an extrovert who thrives on finding unique solutions. That's part of my strategic thinking and influence and all of these things. I have ideation, I have all these things strong in my strengths. So I have focused on working kind of more directly with people on implementation work. I do that through VIP days, which are one-on-one work. And then I have a group coaching program where I work kind of with a smaller group of people to help them get stuff done. That lights me up because I get to work with people. And it also is me kind of getting in there and saying, hey, we're not doing, we're not doing templated stuff here. I'm going to help you figure out what's perfect for you and really kind of work out these problems. And so it works well for me because I've built those offers around where I excel. So that's kind of your offer. The next place that your strengths come in is your promotion. Your promotional plan should be built around your personal strengths. What are you good at? I have a friend who is basically the master of one-on-one communications. Like someone who just, when you were talking to this person one-on-one, you felt heard, you felt everything. So for her, it makes sense to include that piece in how she is promoting her business, right? Because naturally that's going to work. Or if you're someone who's great at building relationships, if that is your ultimate strength, hey, you're probably someone whose promotional plan should involve a large piece of you connecting with other people who can promote you to their audience. It just makes sense because you're using your strength in your promotion plan. Now, me, for example, my strengths are as an influencer. That is my lead area in the Clifton Strengths. And as a performer, I mentioned in MBTI. So my promotional plan involves me being live in front of a lot of people. It involves me, going out there and influencing people and performing. Now, I'm not doing it in an inauthentic way. I'm being authentic as I do it, but I'm doing it and it has an impact because I know those are my strengths. And so I make sure that that's how I'm actually kind of promoting things and getting people aware of my business, etc. I just do it by living what I'm good at. So again, it's going to affect your promotional plan. Now, the next place it comes in is the opposite. It's your team. You should build a team to help in areas that aren't your strengths. Again, when we started this, I said, you need to understand your strengths and build a business around your strengths, and then also find help for your weaknesses. Your team's the first place you do this. You want to hire team members uniquely suited to fill the gaps or fill in the gaps your weaknesses leave. So the things that kind of you're not great at are helpful. And I'm going to use my team kind of help you understand how this fits together. Okay. So I'm what's called the visionary. I'm the lead of the company. I lead with influence and strategy on Clifton Strengths. Those are my two primary domains. And again, I mentioned execution is at the bottom. Well, I have Katie, who's my integrator. And if you don't know the term visionary integrator, read Rocket Fuel. It's a great book that'll help you understand it. She's basically my chief of operations. She's my, partner in crime. I think of her as a partner in the business, even though I'm the owner, but, she helps me and I kind of work through big decisions with her. She's really good at execution. That's her strongest area. So she's able to take my ideas from influence and strategy and all these things and say, okay, Bobby, here's how we're going to execute it and understand how that's all going to work. So again, that's how she fits in and complements things. Then we've got Bobby Joe, who's the head of fulfillment, which includes customer support, includes community building. Her strength is relationship building or relational. So she is perfectly suited to do those things. And again, I'm not horrible at those things, but she is even better. And so the example I always give, when I used to do my own customer support, now I would answer your question, but you were likely to get like this one sentence response, which maybe didn't feel very good. Bobby Joe, she's going to write a response that people are going to be like, oh my God, she's so wonderful. She understands me and all those things because she takes the time. And so that's an example of how her strengths really help. Now, Shelly, my newest team member, is, content and marketing. She helps with both, and she has strategy and influence. So she's kind of like me, slightly different, but with strategy and influence. Again, so strategy comes into play with the marketing piece, obviously, and influence comes in with the content. Now, just to be clear, I'm still very active in content and marketing because those happen to be my strengths too. But Shelly helps me fill in those gaps. So that's kind of how I've built a team. And you can see we have all of the areas, all the domains within Clifton Strengths that really allow us to kind of work through, and we have people to fill in my weaknesses. So as you're building your team, you want to do a couple things. Number one, you want to focus on your weaknesses and bring people in on that. But you can also use like personality assessments for your team to make sure they're in the right seats. Make sure that they're doing their best work. If you think about that as you grow, and that becomes a hugely important thing, because I'll just tell you, if you're starting out and maybe you're not there yet, I want to give you a glimpse into the future. As you grow and start building your team, your most important job becomes to be the coach and the leader of your team. And so helping them to grow can be hugely important, and helping them to be living in their strengths is an important piece too. So that's what you're going to be doing with team building. So that's the first area where you're going to kind of make sure you're getting help for your weaknesses. Now, another way you can do this is to find peers, coaches, and mentors to help with your weaknesses. So you can find people who, even if you don't have a team yet, who are actually good at what you're not good at, who can help you to understand and to see and to work through your problems. So coaching groups and communities can help you overcome areas where you struggle individually. That definitely happens. For example, many people who've joined my coaching program did so because strategic thinking and influence are not their strengths. And so they're able to come into a community where I am active, and they get me as a coach who is good at influence and good at strategic thinking. And then there are other people in the coaching program who are good at that. And so they're able to kind of use that information and have those people help them as they're building their business. So again, I want you to understand, you can find people to help you fill the gaps. And that's what you're going to be doing. Now, me, before I had my team built, I did the opposite. I was looking for groups where people could help me with the execution, because that was something I knew I needed help with. So basically, I was looking for people who would help me with process, help me with all these things, because that's not my natural strength. So again, all of us have done this, and the more that you do this, the better your business will become. So kind of summing up, what I want you to get is that you can't copy someone else's business models. You have to build a business that is suited to your unique abilities, your core competencies. That is the trick to building something successful. So if you want to build a thriving business, build it around your strengths. Don't try to build a business not suited to you. It will not work. Now, in the next lesson, you'll learn about core values and why you need them in your business. Again, this is more of kind of the introspective work that you need to be doing that will help you to ultimately lead the audience that you have found. I'll see you there.